Hey everyone, welcome back to Macro Decoded, where we break down the big global stories that shape our world. Today, we're diving deep into a game-changing move in Ukraine. President Zelensky's massive government reshuffle amid fragile peace talks with Russia. Is this a step toward ending the war, or just buying time for more conflict? Stick around as we unpack the details, explore the implications, and even speculate on what could happen next. And hey, if you're as hooked on geopolitics as I am, hit that like button early to show some love. Let's start by setting the stage with some crucial background. Russia's full-scale invasion of Ukraine kicked off in February 2022, and now, as we approach its 4th anniversary, it's morphed into a grueling war of attrition. Think about it. Endless trench warfare, drone strikes, and a humanitarian crisis that's displaced millions. In 2025 alone, Russian forces have captured over 5,600 square kilometers of Ukrainian territory. That's more land than they took in the previous 2 years combined, focusing heavily on eastern hotspots like Donetsk and Kharkiv oblasts. Ukraine's challenges are mounting. Western aid is drying up. Internal corruption scandals, especially in the energy sector, are eroding trust, and a brutal winter is making everything worse. Power outages are absolutely crippling Kyiv right now, with nearly 60% of the city plunged into darkness after relentless Russian missile and drone attacks. Picture this: over 4,000 buildings without heat in freezing temperatures, leading to a mass exodus of 600,000 residents just this month. Hospitals running on generators, families huddled in bomb shelters. It's heartbreaking and chaotic. These strikes, including a massive barrage of over 300 drones and missiles on January 19th and 20th, have targeted substations and even areas near the Chernobyl nuclear power plant. The UN has condemned them as clear violations of international law, but the damage is done. But amidst all this gloom, there's a glimmer of hope, or at least a shift. Peace talks are finally heating up. Mediated by the US under President Trump, these discussions in Paris and other venues are centering on some heavy topics like land deals for territorial concessions, ironclad security guarantees to deter future invasions, and binding commitments from what's being called a coalition of the willing. Think allies stepping up with real muscle. Zelenskyy is adamant about peace through strength, meaning no backing down without solid protections, and he's firmly rejecting any NATO troops on Ukrainian soil as a red line. On the flip side, Russia is dug in deep, insisting on no direct talks without preconditions, like Ukrainian disarmament in certain areas. It's a high-stakes poker game. Now, let's zoom in on the reshuffle itself. This isn't just musical chairs. It's a strategic overhaul announced on January 2nd and partially rolled out by mid-month after parliamentary approval. Zelenskyy frames it as a substantial rotation rather than firings, designed to blend intelligence, diplomacy, and cutting-edge defense tech for maximum resilience. He's ditching some longtime allies and bringing in fresh faces to tackle corruption probes from late 2025 and prepare for whatever comes next, be it negotiations or prolonged fighting. Let's break down the key players one by one. First and foremost, Kyrylo Budanov, the sharp-eyed former head of military intelligence, steps up as chief of staff and head of the presidential office. This move puts battlefield expertise right at the heart of peace negotiations, allowing Zelenskyy to share the load and accountability. Budanov's already talking big about prioritizing peace, security guarantees, and post-war reconstruction. Next, meet the youngest defense minister in Ukrainian history, 35-year-old Mykhailo Fedorov, who's jumping from Minister of Digital Transformation. His vision? supercharged technological warfare with drones, AI, and cyber ops to inflict heavy losses. He boldly claims it'll kill 50,000 Russians a month and force Moscow to the table. It's a shift from traditional boots on the ground to smart, asymmetric fighting. The energy minister role, now combined with first deputy prime minister, goes to Denis Shmyhal, who was prime minister from 2020 to 2025. This guy's got the unenviable task of fixing the energy crisis amid those blackouts. He calls it the most difficult cabinet role imaginable. And with 36 out of 56 gigawatts of power capacity destroyed, he's not exaggerating. Other notable shifts include Alexei Morozov taking over the security service, SBU, from Vasyl Malyuk, amid some controversy. Oleh Ivashenko replacing Budanov at HUR for intelligence ops. And Serhiy Kyslytsya as first deputy head of the presidential office to amp up diplomatic coordination. We've also got Pavlo Yelizarov as Air Force deputy commander to overhaul defenses against those aerial barrages, Alexander Kubrakov advising on infrastructure, and even Chrystia Freeland, the former Canadian deputy prime minister, coming on board as an economic development advisor to attract investments and drive reforms. Critics argue this is Zelenskyy hedging bets against Trump's unpredictable policies by injecting US-friendly figures, but supporters see it as a smart play for unity and innovation. So, what does all this mean for the peace talks? It's clearly prep work for a tough peace deal, where Ukraine might have to swallow some bitter pills, like territorial concessions, in exchange for those security guarantees. Zelensky's even consulting political rivals like Valery Zaluzhny to build national unity, all while fending off calls for elections amid wartime politics. But the roadblocks are huge. Russian forces keep advancing, with disputed claims of capturing key towns like Kupiansk, and Ukraine's countering with clever asymmetric tactics like drone strikes that have knocked out 40% of Russia's oil refining capacity. On the energy front, the grid's on the brink. Risks of splitting the system east-west and those UN-labeled war crimes aren't slowing Putin down. Domestically, war fatigue is skyrocketing, with civilians bearing the brunt. Internationally, the spotlight's fading as other global hotspots steal attention. Stepping back to the bigger geopolitical picture, this reshuffle ties into broader Eurasia shifts. Trump's aggressive America First foreign policy, potential fractures in NATO unity, and Russia's weaponized energy leverage over Europe. Ukraine's betting big on this tech and talks combo to either seal a deal or endure longer. But if negotiations flop, we could see domestic unrest or even regime pressure. Hypothetically, imagine a successful peace. Rebuilt cities, economic booms, or the flip side, a frozen conflict like Korea's DMZ. Whew, that's a deep dive into a story that's evolving fast. If this breakdown got you thinking about the twists in global power plays, drop a comment and subscribe to Macro Decoded for more in-depth decoded macro stories. Hit that button now and turn on notifications so you never miss an update. Thanks for watching. See you next time.